All right, welcome to the Private 25 review. That's great. Thank you for being here, for joining today. And yeah, there's an open sheet. Like we come here with open hands. That's not really that I have a plan. There is a plan, and it's working perfectly. So completely trusting that. I prepared it too. And completely trusting that too, and that's the great thing. Like no concerns about it, and no, yeah, it just happens. Like it's literally given to share. So that's what I will do with the meditation too, that we're going to start with. Now it is like it didn't really come from the Private 25 talk, but it did come from one of the 1963 talks of Joel in Kailua. And it's interesting because Joel uses the word miracle worker even in this meditation twice, in fact. Or it's like, well, don't become a miracle worker in the sense of turning stones into bread. The other way around is easy. At least that's my experience, to turn bread into stone. It's not so difficult. But then the other way around, that's a different spiel. So Joel says, don't lose yourself in doing that, in thinking that it needs to be in a three-dimensional way. No, the miracle is remembering the God communication. It's like literally actively coming into God communication. That is the miracle. And of course, since we're using the word miracle a lot, like in the Course in Miracles, it is interesting to see this because the Course in Miracles has nothing to do with a three-dimensional repair of any kind or a magic trick that turns, say, stone into bread or water into wine. Like it is not, has nothing to do with that. No, but it does have to do with this, and that it has to do with you. And this is the interesting part. So you are going to receive the miracles in a way that you can receive them. That can be in a three-dimensional plane. Suddenly, the cancer that you appear to have is suddenly gone. It disappeared. It is literally gone. Now that in itself is not a big deal if you look at it from a metaphysical point. But if you look for it from your experience, it can be life-changing. And life-changing in the sense of suddenly you remember, oh my God, I'm not this at all. I'm not that what I thought I was. Wow. Wow, I needed to see that, even physically see that. Now this is great. So it's like that is just as much a miracle as is an, say, direct experience into the into God communication, because it is God communication. God communicates using everything, like the Holy Spirit uses everything to communicate with you. And that means that you will receive the miracles in a way that you can understand, that they can come to you, but they will remind you of an all-loving God that is there, even though you thought he wasn't, that parts of you could be separate, or that who knows what your experience is. So to ask for a miracle, even for a practical thing, is completely legitimate in that sense. It's not wrong. No, it just tells you that you're actually looking for a confirmation, even on a physical plane. Now, so I have many experiences with this. I've asked for miracles in all kinds of moments in my yeah, in my life, you could say, like all kinds of ways. For instance, getting lost completely in a city, not knowing where to go, and getting a little bit desperate, asking for a miracle. It's like, well, I need a miracle. I have no idea how to get to the place that I think I have to be going. I have no idea how to get there. And then instantaneously see that I'm right in front of that street that I actually have to go to. Now that, to me, was a confirmation of an communication that is so beyond time and beyond location, but so my experience in that moment that it is like, yes, well, this was how I could receive it. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, this is important to know because this is just one example. Like I can say, I share many, but this one example is important because, see, when Jesus walked into Bethesda, for instance, when Jesus walked into anywhere and performed a miracle, it was literally, say, completely linked to the way that the person could receive it. I'm sure of that. Like, I'm sure of that. So it's not up to us to think like, well, no, that's not a miracle. Let's say, no, it is like, wait a minute. This is so cut, so individually, say, orchestrated all together that you don't want to miss out on asking for it. Even though you think, well, this is just on a physical plane, or like, well, the physical plane isn't what it appears to be in the first place. So where you deal with is still, it's like it's working in your dream. Well, that's all right, because you're going to have a different dream before you know it, and which is really important. So, and it's going to be a life-changing event for you, suddenly realizing that you have all the help in the universe to remember where you truly abide and what power is in play, so to speak, that nothing is excluded from that. Like, that's literally nothing is impossible. But it has all the same function as remembering who you truly are, realizing that you're home in heaven. So that doesn't change. But see, it's great to always, like, in fact, unchain limitations that you impose on yourself because you think it is not. It is not holy enough, or it is not this enough, or it is not spiritual enough, or it is not, like, no, your definitions don't make any sense in the first place. So you might as well just keep asking for them and asking for experiences that are not of this world while they appear here. So like I said, I've seen too many. I've seen too many, and it's so wonderful to receive it. And yeah, how else, in what other way would you trust what is going on? So it's so perfectly, say, individualized to you, to your individual experience. And you can completely accept that. Like, that's perfect the way it goes with you. That's all, you know? So that's so much for that in the miracle work idea that Joel uses. So he is not completely consistent in using the word miracle. I see this in parentheses too. Sometimes he says, well, you should not be doing miracle work. And then a couple of pages further, he actually tells you what a miracle it is to remember God. And that is exactly what the miracle work is that we're actually training, that we're actually practicing. So that's not completely consistent, and that's okay. Like, it's okay if you recognize it, otherwise you can be confused about it and think like, well, you shouldn't be doing miracle work. Well, that's nonsense. You should devote, like, you should devote your life, your daily life, to miracles, to any kind of help that realizes you that this is not happening. There's something else going on. Like, you want to have as much proof of it as possible. You want to stay in connection with that continuously, is in fact what I'm saying. Well, that was just a short introduction to the meditation. So we're going to do the meditation now, and it's about a 20-minute meditation.
I am not going to turn stones into bread. I'm going to be still and know that I in the midst of me is God. I in the midst of me is mighty. I in the midst of me has the secret of the spiritual kingdom of harmony, peace, joy, glory. And I'm going to seek his rightness, not my patient's rightness, not my patient's health. I'm going to seek his rightness, spiritual rightness. And then when that touch comes, be still. Sometimes he smiles inside of you. Foolish child trying to be a miracle worker. And then you get at peace, and then the patient says, oh, a miracle happened. Ah, but the miracle wasn't the healing. The miracle was that you, individual little bitsy you, experienced God. Me? Why me out of all this world? Well, I don't know the reason why me or you. But when you experience God, miracles take place out in the world. But don't get hypnotized by miracles.
So yes, that was a Christmas song. Not really regular ending, but great. Excuse me. So now you see that even a meditation can turn into an exercise to forgive. At least when I speak for myself, that is what is happening when I listen to this meditation. Like the forgiveness part in it being two things Joel shares with us. One of them being like, I'm not going to turn stones into bread. But then on the other hand, you don't know. It's like you don't know. So you don't know what miracle you're going to perform, or you don't know what you are going to do, because it's not you doing. So it can go all the way. What I mean with that is this, like you don't want to limit yourself in any way in doing this healing work, you could say. You don't want to limit yourself. You have no idea what is necessary for anyone to happen in order to remember God. Like that is completely open. If it is completely open, then you determine that it shouldn't happen like this and it shouldn't happen like that. That's not the case. So I know that Joel demonstrates this and has demonstrated it in his healings, which I totally trust. Like there's no problem with that. It is just for the clarity, for the integrity of this whole healing endeavor, you could say. It is really important to know how, open-minded you need to be in order to allow anything to happen. Because your limitation of it in any direction makes it accomplishments anywhere impossible. Like one exception held apart, from true perception makes its accomplishments anywhere impossible. Now this is great. So it's like, yeah, we hear what Joel says, and here's another part. So in the last part of the video, Joel is asking, like, of the patient could ask, like, why is this happening to me? There are so many in the world. Why is this happening to me? Well, did you ever ask yourself that question. Why is this miracle, like, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me and not to my spouse, or not to my friend, or not to my uncle, or not to my mother-in-law? Like, why is it me where this is happening to? I've asked that question. Like, yeah, I've asked that question, of course. Like, why is this happening to me? Like, now in a positive sense. As a human being, you ask this many times. Why me having this financial trouble? Why me having this? Why me having this disease? Why me? But now it's like, why did the actual miracle happen to me? Why not someone else? And see, that's a really fundamental question that you want an answer to. You want to know why. So Joel says, I don't know. And I don't know why the patient is experiencing it either. But you want to know why this is happening to you. Because, say, advancing on the path, you recognize that that's essential. That recognition is essential to see the place that you have, say, in the universe. To see that you are an extension of the love of God, that you're literally the miracle yourself. It is not something happening to you. No, you are that. Like, if a son of God cannot be called a miracle, then what is a miracle? You know, it's like, hello. So it happens to you. This is all happening to you because you actually start to come into the possibility of a recognition of this miracle that you are. And that's, you don't want to miss out on that. Like, you don't want to miss that information. You don't want to miss that recognition. And you don't, because we are being confronted with it many times in this spiritual development that is taking place in you, in this time, in this meeting, in this class, in all the classes that we share at this point. It's like essential to know exactly how this works and ask the right questions. Why is this happening to me? And, well, you're the only one. Now what? To whom else would it have happened? If there is only one of us, like, to whom else would it happen? To you, of course. Like, you are worthy. The itchy, mitchy, pitchy little you, Christ you, baby Christ you, is capable of receiving this. He's not little, he's magnitude, like he's a whole part of what reality is. You are the miracle yourself. So that's, yeah, let's make that clear. So like I said, then the meditation can become an exercise in forgiveness, because I have to give this away. I don't want to take Joel for it, absolutely not. But it's like, well, I cannot resist sharing this with you either. So there's a possibility to do so. Wonderful. So that's why it's good to be very alert in reading, in receiving, and in checking it one more time, and reading it one more time over, and maybe taking another scripture or the Bible with it and see what happens. Like, for instance, what I shared with you, the miracles in Bethesda. It's like, was it about transforming somebody from a leper to say a healthy person? No, that was not what that was about. No, it was the miraculous recognition of that you are not separate from God, that nothing has occurred, that your body is whole and perfect, because that is the way you were created. If you realize that, then what can possibly become ill? What you identified with so far as a lacking person, as a diseased person, as an who knows what kind of person, you have identified yourself as that so far. But now coming into the recognition, literally to the miraculous occurrence of recognition, of coming into to an, say, light experience in which you, say, experience God directly, or catch glimpses of light and love that is so profound that it takes away the doubt for just a moment completely. And you realize, oh my God, there's something completely different going on. Wow, I miss that. I miss that. I'm so happy to remember this. Well, that's the offering. In this class, it's the offering. In any class that we have, in this healing practice, this is the offering. So if you don't recognize your complete connectedness with the truth that you are, where is it? It's nowhere. It is only for you. Because you are worth it. You were created like it. Like you were created. You are the miracle, is then the easy way to say it. And that takes care of that. All right, so this is like, I love that. I love that. Because I don't want to walk around in missing out on anything just by some words that are being shared. And that should not be like that. I know that people have been waiting for the click that should happen to them in meditating, according to what they have read in the book. Like the click that Joel experienced, you will not experience, because you will experience your click, your individual expression of this, your individual recognition of this. And it's so perfect and so great how that comes to you. Like it's so individually, like custom made for you. And because you are not comparable with anything else, you are unique. So your experience, like your subjective experience of your totality, is going to be totally individual. Exactly coming to you in your way. So it's so lovely. That's why I share this. Anyway, I made my point. So now, quickly going further, I love to share something with you that I discovered in tape. What was it again? I will share it with you, then I can read it. The Material Sense Undone. Material Sense Undone. So I'm going read a little bit. And this is from tape, what was it, 155B. Christ realized precedes treatment. So we're in actually a bit in the same atmosphere as we were just in the meditation. Like Christ realized precedes treatment. Now, since this is true, that the spiritual consciousness is the destruction of material sense, then our function in life is to develop within ourselves a greater degree of illumination, so that we may destroy a greater sense of materiality. Now that's an interesting way of expressing that. So, destruction of material sense, or destroy a greater sense of materiality. So I changed the title already a little bit in Material Sense Undone, because in fact, what happens here, well, just read it slowly, take your time to read this, I mean. I looked at this and had like, okay, so yeah, destroying material sense. Well, that is, say, a classical way of looking at it, because it is like, is there really material sense? Like, there's a sense of materiality, like there's a sense that this phone, for instance, is solid, and that this body, like this body is solid, and that I'm sitting on a chair where that seems to be solid. But even in science, it's obvious now that that vision is not right. It is a matter of, it's energy. It is not what it appears to be. That's why it's an appearance. And Joel says this too. So the use of destruction is then difficult to grasp, because nothing is going to be destroyed. It's just going to be seen for what it is, and it's not what it appears to be. So it dissolves, you could say, or it is undone. It dissolves in your recognition of your true self. Well, see, this all is a matter of how exactly are you expressing this, because you want to be, say, precise in this, and what words you use. And so, yeah, destruction of material sense. I love to use the idea of, say, seeing it for what it is, and seeing that it can change instantaneously into nothing. In fact, like, you recognize the nothingness in it. You recognize that it's not as solid as you thought it was. You recognize that it is literally a sense of materialism, like it's a sense of it. You think that you are experiencing that, but when you experience, say, your moment of light and recognition, when you experience your communication with God, what happens to your world? Well, it dissolves, like it dissolves. What happens to you when you experience your direct communication? What happens to your body? Like it literally shifts into invisibility. It literally dissolves for a moment, because you don't have any ideas about it. So it's like, if I think it's solid, it is solid. If I, say, allow myself to see this in a whole new way and experience myself as not separate from everything that is, I'm literally being shifted out of this. So there's no matter going on. There's nothing the matter. Nothing is matter in that sense. Like, I'm just sharing this not to confuse or not to do anything else with it than to give clarity, because that's what that's what speeds up our progress. That's what speeds up our coming closer to like a full realization of your illumination. Then that which separates the human race from finding a teaching such as the infinite way or any spiritual teaching is material sense. Like, what separates the human race from finding the teaching, from finding a spiritual teaching, is the material sense. They cannot look at the spiritual teaching and value it from the standpoint of material sense. So material sense then is the barrier. Well, valuing the material sense is the barrier, yes. So they cannot look at the spiritual teaching and then value it from the standpoint of material sense. In other words, you make one thing real. So you make one thing real here, you value one thing here, and this becomes your reality. We know this, right? We practice this too. It's like you make one thing real here, or I mostly give the say example of the opposite. It's like you have a beautiful experience of love and light in which you experience direct contact with God. Suddenly one idea creeps into your mind. I'm hungry. Suddenly, whoo, there's a whole world. Because you are hungry, there needs to be a fridge. There needs to be a kitchen. There needs to be a house. There needs to be all of this. It's literally like materializing it in order to fulfill a desire that you came up with. That in fact is not needed. In your direct experience of God, you don't need it, but it's okay. Like, you think these things, so suddenly there's that idea. And whoop, there's the world. Before that, there wasn't no world. There was just you in full presence. So this is then the other way of say, yeah, explaining it, or whatever you want to call it. So, and then the way that Joel says it then is, well, let me bring it back one more time. So what separates the human race from finding teachings such as the infinite way or any spiritual teaching is material sense, like their obsession with material sense. Yeah. So it's like that is your reality. So why would you think there's something else if this is your reality? You cannot see it. You cannot, you cannot experience it when you take the material world as your place to be, so to speak. It isn't dollars or it isn't distance, because the moment there's spiritual sense, the dollars arrive and the material distance disappears. Then our object is attainment, realization of spiritual consciousness. And so the purpose of this meeting is to ask you, or you might say require of you, 3 daily periods to be given to this work in this manner. It isn't dollars or it isn't distance, as Joel says, because the moment there is spiritual sense, the dollars will arrive and the material distance disappears. Then our object is attainment, realization of spiritual consciousness. Attainment, realization, that's our object, that's our purpose. Realization of spiritual consciousness. And so the purpose of this meeting is to ask you, almost you might say require of you, 3 daily periods to be given to this work in this matter. So that's how Joel continues in this talk. So it isn't dollars or distance that is the separation. No, the dollars will arrive. There's a spiritual sense. The moment there is a spiritual sense, the dollars will arrive. I don't know why he says that. Like, well, the idea of lack changes, sure, absolutely. The idea of lack changes. So I'm just going to give you a little a little practical anecdote, you could say, because when the spiritual sense appears, like the dollars, Joel says the dollars come too, don't worry about it. So my experience with that is this. It's like in my practice, when I went to the States in order to be with the master, to really practice this and be, say, an extension of it by say, administrating a healing center, the thing that happens was that I had not really money. There was also not money coming in that much, but I also had no concerns about it. And like, the amazing thing is that the concern dissolves. It is not that you necessarily get a lot of dollars, but it's more like your concern about it dissipates. It disappears. And when you need something, it will be given. Otherwise, like if there's a perfect plan and everything is included in that, for my awakening, like everything is included in that, it will be given for me to do whatever I need to do, so to speak, in order to make that happen, like the universe provides. And in pretty amazing ways, I can tell you that. Like pretty amazing ways. But like I said, it doesn't say, like, it's not that suddenly your bank account starts to become big and full. No, that can be, but it doesn't have to be that way. So you see all these things in expression, don't hold on to it and don't use it against yourself like, well, there's no money coming into my account, I must do something wrong. No, but so look at the idea of, what am I concerned about? Like, if there's a whole loving God, I'm a total part of that. What need can I possibly have? Like, do I need to be concerned with that? No. Am I willing to do anything to give service in the place that I find myself? Yes. do I not determine how that's going to look or what I need to do for that? Yeah, I'm not going to dictate to myself how, or dictate to God how it should come to me, in what way, doing which things. No, it's like my need is in fact satisfied, so to speak, before I even can ask. And this is really true. So the concern, the release of concern is number one. That's where suddenly anything can happen. But one thing for sure is that it is not in the way for you to directly experience your connectedness. Like you're not abandoned by God. You practice during your day 3 moments a day or something like this. Like you practice during the day and you see that happens, that like your concern dissolves. Not because I say so, but because that's going to be your own experience. So all these things are really good to take another look at and just realize that it is not a law that Joel is writing. No, he expresses himself to the ones that are there in this way so they can understand at that point. Now looking again at it, I can share with you like the dissolving of your concern is what is really like suddenly also the idea of lack is dissolved. Well, that is wonderful. So it's not your concern anymore. And actually by actively inviting the universe to tell you what to do, the Holy Spirit to tell you what to do, you can follow the guidance in that, and it will bring you exactly to the right place in the right time, meeting the right people and seeing like, oh my God, how all this comes together. That can even mean that, like that happened to me at a certain point. I didn't have a car in my I didn't have a car in my America episode. Suddenly I didn't have a car, but in the house that I lived, right next to it, there was a car, say, under a big pile of snow, sitting there for a couple of months. And suddenly in spring, I wondered whose car it was. And I asked someone, like, whose car is that? Well, this person was somewhere in South America, and I ringed her up and said, okay, can I buy your car? Because the car is in the garden here, and it's under a pile of snow, but I'm willing to scoop it all away and see if we can get it started. And that's exactly what happened. So it's like suddenly there's a car, like literally, yeah, I had no concern about it, but it was right in front of me. Now you can say like, well, that's really like almost like like a little fantasy story. I know. So, but it did happen, and was I grateful for that was given in that moment, and reconnecting with this brother and hearing that I could just have it and just use it, and like it is all adding up to the party that's going on, the celebration of realizing there's no separation, like there's only one thing going on, and that is you. So where would lack be? Where would lack be if you realize that? Where would disease be when you realize that? You know, so all these things is so amazing. So that's why I love to share it with you. Anyway, so I said it now, and this was a short look at one of the talks of Joel. And so now, in fact, like the next part of the class, of the meeting that we have, is in fact sharing with one another. If you prepared something to like, okay, I made a discovery, I'd love to share this with you, because, or I'm not sure about this, or who knows what, but yeah, you have an opportunity to share it. That's in fact what we're going to do right now. So thank you for listening so far, and so the next part will be the non-public part. Thank you for everything. See you soon.